Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast, Master Random, the podcast. Before I go over to the sponsors, I want to ask you, if you're listening to this on the Apple Podcast app, go ahead and leave a rating and review. It helps a lot with going up the charts on the Apple Podcast charts. I'm pretty sure if you're listening to this on the Google Podcast app, you can possibly do the same thing. But really, I'm tracking the Apple stuff. It's so much easier just to track one thing at a time and kind of see where we go from there. Now that said, to the sponsorship, this episode is brought to you by Mortuary. They are a small, family-owned and operated mortuary that's been serving this local community for over 45 years. From top-of-the-line funeral and cremation services, whatever you need in that time of need, they're there providing the best service for you. If you're looking for more information, if needed, call them at 477-1311, area code 671, of course, or go visit them over on 930 South Route 4 over in Sinania, right before you pass the gas stations, or right after you pass the gas stations. As you go down the hill before you reach Chatwood and Ordet, it's right there on your left-hand side. You can't miss it. They are big enough to serve, yet small enough to care. And now, my next guest on the show. I've been doing this about 4 years, and I've had many musicians on the podcast, and Patrick Palomo is one of those that I've had my eye on for many years, I guess since I started this, right? And just to have him on the podcast is, how do I say this, is absolutely legendary, because I have a legend sitting across from me and I'm picking his brain. And if you're a musician, this is the episode for you. Whether you know Uncle Pat or not, I feel like everything he has to say is extremely beneficial to you in one way or another. And that's about it. That's all I got to say. So enjoy this episode with Uncle Pat, Patrick Palomo, on the podcast Master Random. Check it out. Welcome to the show, sir. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. It's when people say your name, it's like it's become legendary. You're a walking legend. And for me to have like made up this show out of my brain, and somehow everything, all the stars aligned, and now you're sitting right in front of me, is beyond me, or beyond anything that I would have ever expected to come out of the show. So I want to start off like that.
That I'm still trying to get used to that, you know what I mean? Legend and all this, I don't know, everyone, I've been accused because I've done a lot of, interviews because of the music and stuff that I've been doing over the years now. They always say, how come you're always not really wanting to talk about yourself and this and that? And and I'm saying, man, everywhere I go, people notice who I am and they know who I am and stuff. And I'm still trying to get used to that. But
after all the years that you've been playing,
music, I still feel very I feel more humbled than anything else. And I think that's been something that's been key in my growth as an artist, is I've been around a lot of very, almost to the point of it's almost a detriment to me sometimes, because I've been around such shy people and humble people, but these same people, if you look further into them, they're very powerful.
Well, that is like the coda of the artist, right? Is some of them you'll find who are very eccentric and flamboyant and really into their artistry and extravagant, but you'll find those who are really enclosed and kind of a little deeper on the front. They you can't tell it's a little
Yeah.
deeper, but they kind of separate themselves from everybody to focus on that art and develop themselves.
Yes, I'm glad you're mentioning that because yes, like that's how I like you speaking about art and the everything. I was just mentioning to your producer earlier before we started that everything about my music and about myself, it's a reflection of everything that I've been through in my life and everyone who's really inspired me and raised me and taught me, and just that it's hard for me to take credit for it. That's why sometimes I feel so embarrassed because people will be putting me in the pedestal, and I'd rather be just
but it comes
not
with
even be noticed.
Yeah, it comes with the talent, though.
Yeah,
right?
but I always have to remind myself too that it's all right because it at least I know that it's having an effect because everything about my music really is a reflection on the beauty of our land, the people that raised me, our culture. The Chamorro people are just so giving and so beautiful.
For sure.
I want my music to be a reflection of that, and that's really, that's what makes me try and feel more comfortable with all this attention.
Right.
I know at least it's getting through. And then the other thing I always want to emphasize, and it's deep within myself, is that I've accepted it as a way of I've always been into the healing arts. The other thing that people don't really know about me is ever since I was a kid, I've always been summoned to the older people's bedside whenever they're not feeling well, because they
So you're
needed a
you're
massage.
really in tune with like energy and
Well, what I try and do is integrate all of that because music's the same thing. It's all about healing. It's all about trying to make people feel better. And that's where I'm coming from,
right.
So it's always hard to keep that kind of feeling within yourself and know that that's what makes what you're doing as an artist unique and makes it powerful.
Yeah.
When you're always getting all these accolades and, attention. But I always try to keep those in perspective and just accept the fact that at least it's getting through.
For sure. I mean,
But-
just the fact that you're able to remain grounded
Yes.
throughout everything.
Yeah,
I'm sure you've played nationally and you've played locally in
Yeah.
front of many people. This is part of the show too.
Yeah.
The guy is probably
Well,
gonna ride
that's
the
why I'm
motorcycle
glad.
past the
Yeah.
past the studio.
I'm glad that there's
15
this
times.
kind of media thing now
Yeah.
where I can actually sit here across from you and give you this view of myself so
For sure.
that it's known, and it's documented that this is really the purpose of where I'm coming from. I've already made these decisions in just not the recent, not too long ago past.
Right,
Just
right.
recently, I've been doing.
But why?
thinking-
But why keep it so enclosed for so long? How long? Okay, let's start here. Before we get there, let's start here. How long have you known you were an artist, right? When did the artistry really start coming out of you? Was it when you were a child?
Yes.
Okay, sure. Let's start there then.
Yeah, it all started. I knew it because I had this purpose and this feeling about the piano. That's why I was an insomniac. That's another thing I was starting to say.
Right.
I hate to sleep. Honestly, I think sleeping is a waste of time. But
For sure,
you need it.
I'm right there too. I was just telling man, I'm a 5 to 6 hour sleep kind of person, right?
Yeah, me too. I cannot sleep more than 4 hours. I'd be too tired. But I've just developed that because what I would do is stay up late at night at home. I always had this thing. I don't know. I used to think it was a phobia, but I want to think of it in a more positive way. That I had to know first that everyone in the household was asleep, and before I can myself go to sleep. In the meantime, I'm sitting at the piano playing as softly as possible, trying to play as if you're trying to whisper as softly as possible.
Trying to make that hammer just tap the
just so
string.
that I could practice and work on all these ideas that keeps coming to me.
How old were you?
And I was like 3-4 years old, where I was already feeling this and going,
Wow, that's very
and
interesting.
staying up late at night and wanting to play and not wanting anyone to really hear this kind of like clandestine, this secretive thing about me.
Right.
And that's where I started. And it all started to come out where I started to realize that all this thing was just part of a prayer that I always had that was being answered. I gave of myself. I didn't want to I didn't want anything to gain for myself, but I loved playing so much that I wanted to be the instrument too. You know, I wanted to just get that persona thing out of the way, and I'm so glad I felt that since I was a little kid, because I was around a lot of really selfless people that had no egos at all and would just, you know, be submissive just because of their humility and stuff, you know.
For sure.
And then these are the people that I remember powerful things happening, you know, I mean, magical things almost. I mean, like mind reading and, you know, being protected by an energy, you know. I don't know how to explain it.
No, I'm all about the spiritual energy. Um,
So this all was coming to me already as a child. I was feeling this because I was around my aunt who raised all of us, and anyone in my village who knew my aunt would just say that she just radiated, you know, it was just her being, and
the kind of person who can
Yeah.
tell if this person walking to me has good energy or bad energy.
Yeah. She
Like
was also-
something bad
yeah.
is following this person right now.
yeah, she was also our nanny, and she was a tetsa, so there was my way of being exposed to our, you know, local, you know, Chamorro music through the one that was being done in the church
Through the
by him.
church.
The other lucky thing is my dad listened to jazz records,
Mm.
and he was also a songwriter.
So that's
and a
where it sort
Chamorro-
of like
yeah.
stems. That's where the root of
Yeah.
it is. And I think that was going into my next like curiosity is like who nurtured, you know, the artist in you, who started to notice that there's something different about little Pat here, and how are we gonna nurture
There's
this? Or
the same people that I'm trying to, you know, to reflect from my original, you know, makings as far as a kid, my family. I'll never forget my brother telling my parents, because he was already also playing. He loved to play.
hmm I think that is Matt. That's Matt.
Yeah. So he always had to work so hard just to buy his equipment and stuff. I mean, even while he was in high school, he was working at the port, like carrying heavy stuff in the summer, you know, to make extra money.
hmm
So I remember him, you know, telling my parents, you know, overhearing a conversation that because of this special thing he saw in me, and how you know I was developing this thing in music, and how he was asking me to play in the band he was in, and he he told my parents that they should always support me and give me kind of like give me my wings as an artist, and not have to make me struggle to get what I need because I had something going, you know.
Is he much older than you?
Yes. Well, he's just not that much older.
Okay.
I think sometimes I look older than him myself. He's about what 5-6 years old.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's still a good enough gap to have experienced your own life and then still
Yeah.
recognize in your siblings or your relatives of their potential, the potential that they have, right?
Yeah, I would never be the artist I am, and I'm not embarrassed to say this right now. If it wasn't for even my mom, who's struggling now, you know, because she suffered a stroke. She's in her early 90s, but because she has that very strong mind, she's still around.
For sure.
She helps support me. She still takes care of my health insurance payment and stuff, because with the kind of, you know, pay you never really can make it as just being a straight up artist. I mean, I play music for a living, but it isn't always very viable. It was better before.
Really?
Yeah. But because I just so much believe in what I'm doing, and so good things always happen, and I'm the kind of live in the moment person. I don't worry so much about things, so
Right.
you know.
That's it's very interesting. I still want to stick with like how, you know, your younger years, right? The development of the
Yeah.
artist. We kind of like took.
I'm sorry
took
for
a, no,
veering
no,
off.
that's okay. We took a tangent from, you know, how the artist you are today,
Yeah.
right? And sort of I'm very curious on, you know, what made you this artist today, right? And
Well, all these
from
things,
the nurture to who introduced you to
all these
music,
things I'm bringing
right?
up are all relevant to that.
For sure.
Yes.
And so throughout music, I guess now as an artist, but now as a musician,
Yes.
and when did you start realizing that, hey, shit, this is something I can possibly just keep doing, right? And I know Guam has always been traditional, even all the way. Maybe it's changing a little bit now, I think parents are a little bit more open to their kids. Like, all right, you want to try something, go ahead, try this out. But I took the traditional route. I went to college and got a 9 to 5, right? And it's not something, going off that path is not something that's like heavily supported, right? And
Actually, man, I kept telling my parents, let me just stay with the band for a couple more years, then I'll go ahead and catch up with school, because that's one thing that they really wanted me to do. I'm glad you brought that up. But since high school, actually, man, my story is so wide, because I didn't even mention my high school time, when literally, as much as I knew that music in me and that whole thing was there, the passion, I really wanted to become a Catholic priest.
Really?
Yeah, I was in the seminary. I was an FD for 2.5 years. And that was the time when the minor seminary, they had a dormitory there, and the seminarians that were in high school and aspiring to be priests were already living there, starting the early stages.
It's like like a seminary prep kind.
But I want to make this real short.
For sure.
When I started to notice the culture of what you're hearing about now, it made me really decide that perhaps that wasn't really the vocation that I was aspiring to. And then that's when I meditated, I prayed so hard, and then I just had something just told me that it was the music that I really loved doing, and stuff that I could, use as a way of doing, the Lord's calling.
For sure.
It's like a ministry, and even doing it the way I've been doing it all these years, playing in bands, and, not being able to go to school, man. Every time I tried to break away from a band, because I was always involved in being a musical arranger, that's how I've developed my ear, just from all this listening to stuff and always figuring things out, so it always made it so that it just made sense in most of the groups I was in, like the casuals, they're, that I take care of arranging the music, because I could get it really quick, and then we could,
right.
And then it was a challenge for me, and it helped me expand my musical.
Wait, so were you
knowledge.
Classically trained in any way?
No, not in any formal way. Not at all. I just listened to a lot of stuff and tried to play it.
Wow, so it's been ingrained in you. I mean, it's
it's
not a fluke that you were trying to play the piano quietly at 3-4 years old.
No, it was a real organic approach.
For sure.
Yeah, it was very.
Because I would imagine back then it wasn't. It's not like YouTube today, right? Where you can just YouTube a song and YouTube some blues notes or jazz chords, right?
Oh man, it's so much easier now. I mean, I just say, wow, I could imagine, with the hunger I had to learn, and if I had these kind of tools but then you.
So there wasn't like books or anything like that. It's literally just immersing yourself into the music.
Yeah. Well, after listening to a lot of the stuff my dad would be playing practically all day, it wasn't really even the pop music it wasn't, and that's where I learned to like it, when it was at somebody else's house and I saw the Beatles on TV, and I fell in love with their music too. But at home, it was either the jazz records, the Brazilian jazz albums, and the, some classical stuff that my dad and my mom would be listening to. So, that, but I think what helped me out, especially in the compositional side of, because I've been writing a lot of tunes ever since I can remember. I always felt that they weren't being that shy boy from PD, that I'm too mamalo to let anybody listen. It's just a song I wrote, but I don't think it's that good.
You start playing it and you don't tell anybody it's your song. Like, who plays that? You don't know the artist.
That quiet of the night in the village of PD, all those years I spent staying up, I think it developed me as a composer, because I had to figure things out, and just my mind would be, trying to dig for stuff and to try it out and play, and and that's I think had a lot to do with just my situation of,
And you had the time, right? It's not like the distractions of today. It's either you play outside or
But check this out. Remember, I'm talking about I developed one of the most difficult things to do technically as a pianist, which is the pianissimo. It's to whisper. Play softly and evenly it's easier to bang and play hard. but I developed that, and then it's really helped me now with my technique. People always think I'm classically trained, but no, it's just from all those. The other thing I found
So
out.
you're able.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just don't know the. I guess I'm not too versed in. I guess.
It's like drumming
music?
when you play
Right.
piano.
Right. So your touch is so soft that you're able to at least get the littlest sound out of
Yes.
it.
But get it
still
even so that and do it really softly and even. It's very hard to develop that physical thing to do.
right. Everything I know about music has been backyard style.
Yeah.
Internet. And this is the early days of the internet back in the 99s and 2000s. But anyway, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
But the other thing that's really funny is I always thought that I was playing softly enough or no one would hear me. I just found out from this guy recently, he lived across the street, that sometimes they would stay up at night and just to listen to me play.
Wow.
And I said, really?
Wait, so
No one was this. I said, some of the neighbors were on to what I was doing.
right,
And I guess they could hear a little of it,
right.
I mean, we didn't have like aircon at the time. Some of the windows had to be
Right,
open.
you
And
open the
then,
louvers and for sure. Yeah. I mean,
It's funny, and I go, man, didn't all those repetitive stuff I was doing didn't bother you?
so were you already composing by then?
I was already writing. I used to think of them as patterns,
Okay.
and then until I started maturing musically and learning that every note should have a life of its own that you're playing, and then that's when you start thinking of it in a composer's view.
Right. How about your own personal influences outside of what your dad played or your mom played?
Oh yeah. I'm glad you asked that because I was thinking,
Can you just pull the mic just a little closer to you?
Okay.
You don't have to lean in. You can even pull it all the way back.
yeah, a lot of my growth as a musician, as an artist, had to do with just being personally influenced by teachers. I would call them gurus, along the way
Right.
of my, career, just from playing in a band. Because what happened is everywhere we played, like, or even like while I was in high school and I would go listen to bands, as soon as I hear the keyboard player and hear that they are really, really good, all of a sudden I want to be like their groupie. Like, hey, I want to be, can I carry your equipment for you? Can I just to hang around and listen?
So it's
learn.
never been you've never felt threatened by talent or competition or anything like that?
Oh no, I learned to let this ego thing, because it's the most detrimental thing to knowledge.
Yeah,
especially
I'm sure to
in-
an artist stylistic
Yes,
themselves, right?
especially if you're trying to develop yourself to be able to play so that you can affect people in a healing way.
Right.
So yeah, it's never been like that. It was more like, hey man, hey teacher, I want to learn, I want to be able to play like you. And it's still like that. And I feel the same way about younger people. One thing I've been able to do as an artist and as a musician is just bridge that generation gap. Like this artist, his name is Jacob Collier. He's from England. I just heard of him. The drummer that recorded with me, TJ Hubert,
Okay.
turned me on to him a couple of years ago. He's a YouTube sensation. Even Quincy Jones picked him up. But he's just one of those YouTube kids that plays everything.
Right.
Oh my God, when I heard him, it's like all of a sudden there's a teacher.
Right.
Yet he's what? He could be my grandchild. But you don't, I guess if you want to keep reinventing yourself as an artist and keep wanting to be fresh and keep every time you play, even if it's the same song, it's like a new song, because that note has to be alive,
Right. Because
you gotta.
I'm sure you'll find people who are like, no, that's not how you do it.
There's, oh yeah, well,
Yeah.
and it's just funny, but I look at teachers that way, and this guy is he's just a genius. That's why musical genius. And so how can I not be affected by it and learn from it even at my age,
Mm-hmm.
That's how it's always been like that with me. I've met some beautiful artists, and I'll never be the musician I am today if I didn't get some, knowledge and perspective and, inspiration from them.
For sure, like putting yourself out there to want to get to know,
Yeah.
especially back then, right? When when all this MySpace and YouTube and all that
No, it
wasn't
wasn't
available, where you can just like, oh, let me look up this dude from England, you know? And it's actually just the people around you and the other musicians.
I've just felt that, you know, it's been such a huge blessing, you know, and it's been an answer to my prayer that I was talking about earlier, you know, where I really prayed to God, say, hey, can you just take me and use me? Somehow along the way, I met some of the best art. Like, this guy's name is Bobby Enriquez. He's a piano player, kind of self-taught too, kind of, you know, real organic like me. But he had this incredible ability to play. He was ambidextrous. He was also a black belt in Taekwondo. So he applied using his center and his whole martial arts, you know, kind of discipline to his piano playing. And he played like, this guy he's been known to crack the soundboards of piano because he attacks it. He plays it like a drum. But he's affected me hugely because of his technique. He eventually made it pretty big. He's known as the Wow Man from Mindanao. Anybody can Google him and learn from him. Unfortunately, he passed away, but he was one of my biggest teachers because he happened to be performing in Hawaii before he got discovered, playing at a piano bar. Every time we took a break with the band I was in, it was just across the street. I would run and listen across the street to listen to this incredible piano player play. And then we became friends because I begged him, say, hey, can I take lessons from you? He goes, oh no, you know, and then he told me that there's another piano player in town that if I listened to her, I'd learn more stuff, you know.
But do you think it was something like he didn't want to teach you, or he didn't think he was good enough?
No, it wasn't that at all. He just knew that I was hungry for knowledge, and he was actually being a teacher by not even having me take lessons with him. You know why? Because he would say to me, like I say, God, how do you work on all these things? Because you know what? He'd be playing a song. At that time, you know, I'm sitting around near the piano. It's a piano bar. And he's smoking a cigarette. His name is Bobby Enriquez. He knew how to separate everything. He had everything had a mind of its own. That's the ultimate level you want to reach as an artist, especially myself, who thinks in a drummer's mentality playing piano, because that's a percussion instrument.
Right.
So this guy, Bobby Enriquez, is talking to me, smoking his cigarette, you know, playing a song with his left hand and not missing anything and just using his left hand. He was that kind of mind. And I was already learning. God. And I said, so how do you practice all these? Oh, no, he goes, I like to play golf. I just think about it and I work on these things while I'm at the golf course. I don't even own a piano.
No way.
He uses his mind.
Wow.
A true genius, you know. So
that's pretty amazing. I mean,
I could never be like that.
Right, to not nurture your talent, right? It almost sounds foolish.
He does it, but he does it in a different way.
Right.
He has that ability.
Right. Yes. To be able to translate what's going on in his head into actual physical movement. But right, that's kind of confusing though, because music is muscle memory, right? Everything you're doing, it's
all those years of, you know, in fact, just him being Filipino, you know, he's a workaholic. You know, Filipinos are workaholic. His workaholic thing was probably playing gigs ever since he could, playing a piano with a band and, you know, doing.
Right.
So all that there was developing, but he didn't take the time to, you know, sit down and try and work out all these incredible things he was doing. He just developed that because he understood how to use his martial arts training.
I see. Yeah, you mentioned this was in Hawaii. When did this sort of move to start playing outside of Guam happen for you?
I happened to be in a band, you know, famous band called the Casuals.
Yes. And who doesn't?
They actually put together. I was in a phase of the Casuals before the group that even went to Hawaii. This was straight out of high school in the very early 70s. This one actually, Uncle Tot, Joe Cunningham was in it. So this one of my teachers along the way, Monte Plata Vega, was a great guitarist and knew a lot about music. Those are one of the brains I picked. I'm glad you were talking about this.
For sure.
I'd feel bad not even mentioning him. But we were together as a group, then the group disbanded, and I joined this group called Cattail. Oh, we're stoners, dude. That was nuts. And Cattail at the time were those weed coming from Thailand, you know, and they're coming in stick. So that was just a short episode, but then the Casuals reformed and they were putting a group together to go and try and make it in Hawaii. And
same sort of core group, or
the core was still the same because it was Frank Mendiola, Danny Paris, but this time this group had Jesse Bias.
It's so funny because I played with Uncle Dan for maybe 2 years. We had a band called BB Gun Brigade.
Really?
He was our bassist, him and Matt, right?
Yeah, his son Matthew.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So, and we were just talking. We're like, oh man, dude, we should start playing again. You know, like playing together again. It's so much fun. The talent he has, and I'm standing there. I'm like, I'm playing with like a bassist legend right here. You know, it was mind blowing, and yeah.
So, but you know that there was a key point when I already promised my parents that after this stint with this I would go to school. Actually, I was attending the University of Guam, but you know, getting stoned and playing 7 nights a week, it was. Anyway, so
and
Frank,
so you were like around 18, 19 years old at this time. Okay.
Frank approaches me and tells me that they have this plan, and he's already got, you know, put enough money together to go and live for several months until we can hook up with an agency, and they really need me to be part of the group to arrange music and be the other keyboardist, because the other guy was Zachary Flores from Tim Winning. He was the other keyboard player in the Casuals. And so he had to talk to my mom and assure her that everything was going to be all right in Hawaii, because my mom, you know, they were still very, very kind of protective over what I was going to do with my future and if I was just going to go leave with this band. But you know, I was convinced that maybe this is, so you know, we did, man, we practiced so much. We really, and you know, Jesse Bias was singing. It was a great sounding group. Even if we didn't have horns, like we learned the whole album of Earth, Wind and Fire, which was a really huge advantage for us. Because when we got to Hawaii, even the bands that had horn players, they didn't even do Earth, Wind and Fire. You know why? It was too hard for them. And here I was racking my brain already. I already trained my ear to learn all these things, and we were going to do it right. And we were just, you know, I was putting a lot of energy and a lot of time. After having that even small stint with the Casuals of Monte Plata Vega and Joe Cunningham, I had already learned enough about 4-part harmony and things to be able to start learning this more progressive type of like Earth, Wind and Fire and Stevie Wonder music.
Did it also,
and more jazzy?
Yeah. Did it also open your mind into the performance value now?
Yes, so much that I always just wanted to just concentrate on the music and just let that speak for itself. Right. That's why I'm the artist I am today, you know, recording, you know, my record with younger artists and doing stuff but yes, performing is a huge part when you're with a band, of course. Everything matters.
Right. Because you can listen to a band on a CD or a record or on YouTube, and if you go watch them, you're like, the hell is this? They obviously spend more time in the studio than they did, you know, live or trying to perfect their live show. I mean, you can either be the band that sounds exactly like the CD, or you can be the band that's like, okay, we're gonna change up our stuff a little bit, make it a little slower than the CD, or a little faster, or put a little funk in.
Yeah, you know, nowadays, because people are more knowledgeable about being able to change up things and it's more acceptable. Yes, those things. But even back then, man, it was we spent a lot of time making sure that the quality of what we're doing,
the sound.
And I was mean, boy, as a musical arranger. Sometimes rehearsals gonna go for over 6 hours. Sorry.
Wow.
And I'm the kind of person, I don't even like to take breaks. Once I'm already
you don't sleep,
my
you don't take breaks.
No, but once my mind is already going with the music, I learned to draw from that energy. Because the same thing with massaging. Remember I told you I used to massage a lot when I was a kid?
Yeah.
Sometimes I had to massage my grandmother's brother, Tatatsu, for 6 hours.
Jeez.
So by doing that, you have to learn to revive your energy. And so people say that when you massage, you know, you can tire yourself or you take the bath. No. Already as a kid, I was already concentrating on that mind, using your mental ability to just always think and concentrate that if I'm making a person feel better, that energy, that healing thing is coming back around and giving me more strength to keep going. It's like what do you call that? a recycling thing.
Okay.
It's a recycling, or it's a transformation of energy from bad to good. And that's why in healing, and I even think of music, I think ultimately you have to, free yourself of a lot of things. You practically have to heal yourself first before you can heal anybody. You
For
have
sure.
to, and that's just, and I worked on that already. That's why I was able to develop all this endurance, I was already working on that just from massaging.
And as fast as you play too, right? It's like that you don't just not get hand fatigue or forearm fatigue. Lactic acid
See, all
building
those
up
things
into your arms.
you're onto that. Yeah, you have to develop those things. Yes. So, no, I work on them, but it was just that whole, and I think that's all part of that blessing and part of that gift is that I was able to discover that I could do these for longevity. Because I've been approached by physical therapists and they go, you can't be massaging and playing like this. You're going to get carpal tunnel. But, there's a word. And it had to do with something you brought up earlier. It's about trusting, That's why I named this latest record we released called Hinengi, in Chamorro means believe, trust. You just have to trust, and then things will somehow work its way, You develop this way of, and
Right.
so far I've been able to,
Kind of work off of
keep
that idea.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. Oof.
I hope I'm not getting.
No.
Boy, it's just the way you ask and the way you look at me. I like this. I'm not even used to this, but this is good for me actually.
For sure.
I like
it's
this
super
even better than the one I did recently. Because I was up there on stage, And,
it's nerve wracking, and try to create a sense of comfort inside this place, right? And I for me it's therapeutic to want to get to know somebody and really dig into the experiences that they go through. It's for me a genuine interest, and I always come out of each and every episode feeling a little bit more knowledgeable than I did an hour before that, before you walked into the door, before whoever walked into the door. And it's I think that's why I keep doing it. But
okay, and that's you're on to something good.
Thank you.
That's
energy,
and
we're
knowledge.
We're sharing energy right now,
it's
right?
power, and it's something that my pari Jesse Bias. I have to mention this. He and we're kind of like in the same wavelength ever since before. Now that's one guy that I experienced. I'll share this, okay? Now that we're talking about that, because this is in that metaphysical level.
For sure.
Okay, Jesse is very close to his grandfather. This was when we were with the group, the Casuals. We were working on our stuff. What had happened is we already went to Hawaii and we came back to Guam to spend a little time. There was a club where we were playing at.
What did you guys, before we move on, did you guys find success in Hawaii?
Yes, we did. We released a record and had a couple of hit singles from it.
Okay.
We can talk about that later. But I want to get into this,
for sure.
specific story. So, Jesse, his grandfather and my grandfather are first cousins from the Sablan side and from Sumai. And I learned a lot about my grandfather from Jesse's grandfather. My grandfather died before the war, actually, when my mom was still, just still an adolescent. And and Jesse was very close with him, He raised Jess, Anyway, he got sick, and at the time we were here, he was already in his last days, and he happened to be at the hospital, and Jesse was there, and he passed away. Well, that same afternoon when that happened, I happened to be at the club that we were playing at, and there was a piano there. And I was sitting at the piano. You know me, I'm always trying to be at a piano. Where there's a piano, man, any free time I have, I'm going to be there working on something. It just so happened that this thing came to me, and I started writing this song, musical. I was putting together this musical composition. And it came together. It was a whole song. So not too long after that happened, Jesse comes walking into the club. And then he comes up and he tells me he just came from the hospital and that his grandfather passed away. And 3 sheets of small paper, he wrote a song in Chamorro about his grandfather. It's called Tata. And, the piece I was writing fit perfect, like a puzzle.
Like the universe meant for that piece to match those lyrics that he wrote.
Yes, it was pretty incredible. And you know, this last series of Hita talks I did at the museum, I told that story, and Jesse happened to be in the audience, and we haven't done this song in decades. He came up and we did it.
Wow.
And you know, even at the funeral, we played that song at the funeral, and actually, it's in his first album. It's called Tata. It's a song that he and I wrote together.
Okay.
He wrote the lyrics. I had the music. I wasn't even involved in that recording because Jesse left the Casuals while we were still performing. He left the group while we were still out there trying to make it. We had another lead singer. He needed to come back to Guam. You know, his boys were getting big, and then he did that Guam on My Mind project.
Okay.
And that song Tata is in that recording. Actually, that's the album that brought me back to Guam too. After the Casuals finally just.
From there, you realize that going any further isn't gonna matter.
No, actually, I had a choice. I was given some. Actually, I had some friends, some that are very successful right now. My friend Kimo Cornwell is in Hiroshima. He was in Kalapana too before.
Okay.
When he knew the Casuals was gonna break up, and we had always been keeping in touch. I know his wife Debbie. We had always been just close musical friends, just like how guys from Kalapana, Mackie Fury is a very close personal friend of mine.
Wow.
Because of the music, because of our, you know, our way of affecting each other as musical composers too.
And you guys were in the Hawaii circuit at the same time.
Yeah. But see, what happened is Kimo told me, hey, Pat, man, now that you're free, you know, you gotta come out here to LA, bro. You sing his, you know, local Hawaiian, you know, pidgin kind of talk.
Yeah.
Of course, I lived there for almost 12 years, so that's like a second home. And
Wow.
he goes, you're crazy. I told him, no, man, I have to go back home. I was like, well, you can go to Guam anytime, but over here, I can get you hooked up. You can, you know, he's literally telling me that because of where I was at musically, that I could make it back there.
Yeah.
But I told him that no, it just, I told him I'm going to think about it. But when I listened to Jesse's album, Guam on My Mind, you know, and that song Guam, you know, just that song Guam got you. I'm like, that kind of thing. I was crying. Even my ex-girlfriend in Hawaii, she was crying because she knew I was gonna leave. I had to go back home.
Shoot.
There was all those opportunities that were there for me. It wasn't even, you know, it wasn't hard
Didn't matter
to make. Yeah, I always followed where my heart was, and I knew I had to come home. And then the largest influence in my life was still here in Guam too, and we always kept, you know, close that way.
for sure.
My aunt, my Auntie Kit, you know, I have she mattered hugely in my life as a teacher, as a guru, possibly. Yes, there's another person I've had metaphysical experiences with.
Okay.
And if you want, we can talk about that in another time.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a long story, boo.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I thank you so much, honestly. Maybe you're the guy that's gonna write my book.
I'm not much of a writer.
I've also been but this is kind of like a documenting, you know.
For sure. I'm just trying to touch every aspect of, you know, of your long career as a musician, because it's not something that you just did back in the day, I would imagine, right? It's not something that was just available for you to do. Like, well, okay, if you're in New Orleans and you're playing jazz back in the early 1900s or even mid 1900s or even towards the 2000s, they'll be like, all right, go do your thing, whatever. If you make it, you make it. You don't. It's like you literally have to uproot yourself from this place and go somewhere else. And just the fact that you've been led to that decision after spending 10, 12 years in Hawaii? Was that all?
Yeah, with the
continuous?
Casuals.
Yeah.
You see, the direction of the group was, in order for us to stay together as a band, we'd still be able to go touring, but we had to kind of become a show band. And I wanted to just get more about the music, not about the visual thing, because then as a show band, we would have to do
in what respect?
Like there was a group called SOS that did a lot of shows for many years, and they're known as a great show band because they can play music and imitate music that exactly the way it sounds and do impersonations and that. I wanted to go in a more organic approach into gravitating to finally doing something perhaps with my music and my writing and stuff, and which I just totally had all this trust and belief that there was a purpose behind it.
So you weren't trying to please someone else to make sure that you're playing the right music that they would like,
Yeah.
palatable to the region that you're playing.
Yeah, I had to make sure that if people wanted to feel good about what I was doing as a musician, I didn't want it to be being in a show band imitating people.
Right.
I wanted to be me, myself, and what I represent and as an artist, and what my music represents.
Right.
So that's that journey. That part of that journey brought me back to Guam.
And this is already in your 30s.
And then yes, I'm a late bloomer, way late.
Me
But,
too. I consider myself a
yeah.
late bloomer, totally.
But that's when I did my PD Village album. I was at the time, it was great, and there was really better gigs and better paying gigs for musicians then. This is already I'm talking about the late 80s
Okay.
into the early 90s. And
So you're seeing more people is spending time playing music out here.
yes,
in Guam?
bands, yeah. The hotels had budget for entertainers, and it was it was pretty decent pay. I mean, it was so good that the girl Cindy Manglonia and I, we made, between the two of us, we were able to hire a band to play with us and pay everybody, in a professional manner, because the hotels were thriving in that time. I mean, the happy hour we played at, and she was the one to go, I'm never good at business. I let somebody else do that. I just there for the music and making sure that it's as the quality is as good as it could be.
For sure.
So she always was able to get a really good deal where they took care of us, they fed us, and when the bar made more money than what they're expecting, we make a percentage of that. It was really great at that time, and it was a good time for me to release my first record. So that was at the Pacific Star Hotel, which eventually became the Marriott.
Okay.
And we're talking about early 90s, so it's just part of that journey going, and that was when I released my first record. Then thereafter, I got hooked up with this record label in San Francisco and released another record after that.
Right. So you were still able
them.
to send your music out? Is this people seeking you out, or?
Well, what happened is I got together with my producer now. His name is Eddie Joa,
Okay.
who still produces in fact, this latest release I have is
him.
He produced actually all my records except for one. There was and that was his teacher, who was also the co-producer. His name is Frank Doherty, for my first two records, the PD Village and the Looping Sunset album. Frank Doherty actually is a Grammy Award jazz producer for
Really?
the Concord label, and he noticed something that he liked, and because otherwise he wouldn't, people are always looking for him. But he took this gamble with Ed and I, and to this day we're still very close and pretty much connected because of this work I did with Monarch Records and him producing the records along with Ed, except for this one that we did at Los Medanos College, where I think he still teaches recording and engineering.
Okay.
It's called Conversations and Monologues, and that one's not actually out in the in the
world.
Boy, I'm not good at keeping track of my music, but there is a place called a publisher called Sugo Music that picked up the catalogs from the record company with my PD Village and a Looping Sunset album.
So they have this physical copy somewhere.
Yeah, and actually nowadays they download stuff, so
Okay.
it's all out there, even with my latest record.
Yeah. I was just listening to.
Did you check out any of my stuff recently?
I've always been a fan of Evolutions. That was like my college days, and it was something that
project, man.
Yeah, it's something that really kept me still close to home, right? And for me, I was exploring music as an artist and trying to find my style, and actually like writing music or writing lyrics to songs and stuff. Never got anywhere. It never found any real success. But for me, the music has always been a soul thing for me. Before I started doing this podcast, I was never a very conversational kind of person, expressing my feelings. I had a real hard time expressing my feelings to people, and it was only through music that I found that outlet. Like, wow, okay, if I can if I can make an effect of, if I can write something about what I was feeling in this moment and let it perpetuate and almost like send out that energy to someone else to make them feel what I was feeling in that moment, that's powerful to me. So whenever we played, it wasn't if I was playing to one person or we were playing like some kind of show or like a opening up for a big band and there was 100 people there. It didn't matter to me because I absolutely loved the way writing music and kind of performing it in that sense, how it made me feel. And I think when I started this podcast, I put music to the side, and
you could integrate all of that.
Yeah, I'm starting to work music back into my life again. Picking up the guitar more and trying to just write more.
It's in your DNA,
Yeah, for sure.
I have to, I always like the Chamorro thing about music. I think about families, and I know that your grandfather from the Ada side is very close to my mom. They both played piano.
Yeah, he used to play piano when I was a kid. Yeah. And
then your mom
sit in the middle of the chapel, and he's just
your mom is Dave playing. Santos' sister.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the whole Santos side, they're all very talented musicians.
Dave,
yeah.
I started my musical journey in doing the original stuff with Dave.
Really?
Yes, but Dave is all or nothing kind of a guy, man. Like, I love him to death. He and I were so close that people actually thought he was gay. Because I'm not embarrassed to say it.
You guys spent a lot of time together.
Yeah, we spent so much time together. We were like inseparable almost because of the music. We were in a band together called Blue Fire.
Okay.
Does that sound familiar? Not too long ago, when Paul Suba was chief of police, he named his pet crime busting project Blue Fire because he's married to Joylene. And and she was our lead singer along with Dave at the time with that group called Blue Fire, and that's when Paul was really looking for her. Hey, I love you too. So I totally freaked when I saw that he named
people
his
thought
thing.
that you and him.
It's funny I brought up that thing, but it's just an off the wall thing. We have so many beautiful memories.
For sure. When did you mentioned at least playing original music, and when did that start? When did jazz and playing original music, jazz and the jazz style start evolving for you?
I always felt, because of my roots actually of starting to listen to music was jazz. I always felt that always had an effect on how I wrote and stuff. As an artist, that's why I was so drawn to artists like Stevie Wonder and Antonio Carlos Jobim, because they use a lot of jazz elements in their harmonic structure of the way they write their music. Hey, you made it this far. You enjoying this conversation with Uncle Pat? Go ahead and leave a rating and review if you're listening to this on the Apple Podcast app. It just helps the podcast go up on the national charts in the United States, within, of course, the Apple Podcast app. So back to the conversation. And so I guess I started gravitating in that style. And then I love Latin music because of the rhythmical thing, in it. And I don't know, it's just something that I've listened to a lot of Latin artists. And so I think that has a huge effect on the style or what my music may sound like. Right. So was this like back in Hawaii when this started happening, or is this more when you moved back to Guam and you realize, shoot, I want to start doing, Jesse's music brought me home. Yeah. I want to start doing this and making music. Yeah. It's funny because you brought that up, and we actually did a project. One of Jesse's lesser known albums is called Language of Love, and that's the second album. When I came back, we went and did that record together in the Philippines. But no, as far as the jazzy sounding part of it, I think it's always kind of been there with you. Yeah, it's always been there because whenever I would hear things, I hear it in that context. Right. I feel like we're inching our way. We're slowly inching our way back to you being,
sort of getting to that legendary status, right? Of when you say Patrick Palomo, it's not like who, oh, people already know. It's like, oh, famous pianist, but you mentioned that back in the late 80s, early 90s, that it was much better environment to be a musician compared to
As far
today,
as the viability, the pay.
of being able to live off of being a
Yes.
musician.
Yes.
And what do you think happened between the 90s, the late 80s
Well,
and
you know,
90s to almost like, I guess, the 2000s and up until this latter half of the decade?
Well, when at the time, like there in the late 80s and that early 90s was when tourism was really thriving, and the average tourists that came here from Japan were the very high spending tourists.
Okay.
So the budgets of the hotels
Right. you
allowed
mentioned they were thriving.
entertainment budgets were huge at that time in the hotels. They paid good money and
Mhm.
for shows and for the musicians that played, it was a viable thing. But then when it took a hit where the economy kind of went down because of some factors or this or that, and then
So did the viability of being a musician.
yes, because the first thing that they would have to cut, as far kind of like even the States, I mean the United States government, the first thing they cut is the performing arts, the endowment,
Right.
the funds. The same thing happened with the hotels. Their entertainment budgets went really way low. So it kind of created an opening for other, musicians and artists to come and kind of like, I never want to put anything negative, but it really is the truth of what's happened over the years, this undercutting thing. And because there are no protections
For sure.
or no guilds or artist guilds or
Right.
any union.
It's funny you bring that up because that's something I always ask every musician that comes on this podcast is like, is there even any thought to want to try to start a guild or some kind of union to protect
there was
the
a
rights
little
of
movement
musicians?
at one time for one of the unions was interested in coming and setting up their model or their, and this happened, I think, when it was more like Frank Cabral and the likes of Carlos Laguardia that were more, and it already made it to a point of the legislature where, and I don't know what happened. And, a lot of these things can only happen if artists learn to, strengthen numbers, you got to come together and in order for causes to move, and it's hard sometimes because of the undercutting and
It's already
and
been,
then
maybe
there's already that negative vibe that, hey, and you know what?
and that standard is now very low too still, right?
Well,
I mean,
I'm still to this day, I'm still trying to as an artist, still trying to keep the quality of what I'm doing, and I'm working with artists to let them know that, hey, if you love to do this, make yourself as good as you can, especially now with all this knowledge that's readily available at your fingertips.
for sure.
And that way, when the time comes where you can come together and say, we want to do it, at least they kind of question you about the quality of your product.
Right.
If you want to, use that kind of thinking,
Yeah.
my dream and the reason what keeps me going, and gives me the determination to keep trying to write music and keep doing it at a level is I want to be able to see these younger artists that put in the investment of their emotion and all their time, and even with the help of their supporters, find a way where they can do what they love to do, and be true to it, and there's viability,
Being able to support themselves doing it. Because I mean, I've run into a lot of musicians who do full-time music, and it's an everyday thing, 7 days a week, couple times a day. Some of these guys who sing, their voice sounds like this, but when they sing, it sounds like an angel. But that's just a part of that's part of the hustle of being here on Guam. But then you bring up viability. It's like, how long can this keep going without protecting
Yep.
artists and musicians? Especially there's the musicianship is probably doubling, and the talent's probably doubling than what it used to be.
Here's a great example. You know, the Japanese wedding services. It's not as, you know, the weddings. I've worked for wedding services because I needed to do something during the day, you know, otherwise get a real job.
Right, for sure.
It could have been very professional if at the time when they first started and there was lots of wedding, you know, some musicians would get together, but I won't mention any names, but I remember approaching someone who's still gigging to this day. And this person, I said to this person, hey, you know, now that there's all these weddings thing, it looks like this is something that maybe we should get together as in a group form and set some standards so that we don't get screwed with this and get the kind of money that normally professional weddings would pay to the musicians, the organists or the singers. This person said to me, man, please don't even try and touch anything or do anything now, because I'm very happy with what's going on right now with the work I'm getting, you know. Right. And I kind of said to myself, wow, man, that was
very short-minded.
Yes, and you know, this person was just being protective over their own, you know, viability.
I see.
Because even, you know why? Because what they were paying was peanuts. And I brought that up. But they were getting the numbers. Some of these musicians that really undercut and made their pay so low, they'll go ahead and get it. Because honestly, even if you get paid $20, but you get 80 weddings in a month, and sometimes more, some people say they come to close to 100 weddings. Imagine that. It adds up, right?
Right.
But and I mentioned this
but that's not stopping the wedding coordinator or whoever's producing it to be like, okay, like you said, they can experience cuts and be like, all right, well, we need to cut.
They need to make money, so they're making it out of, you know. And I don't work for Japanese wedding service anymore. I'll just say it. The musicians are still getting screwed. If you know why? Because I have a cousin who runs a wedding service in Vallejo, and she came to Guam while I was doing this. And she goes, hey, tell me about this wedding service here. Maybe we can bring our services here. And I'm telling her. And she goes, she couldn't believe when she asked me how much I was making per wedding. I was making $50 at the time. She goes, what? She goes, for half an hour, I pay my organist $250.
Wow.
And she goes, and then I told them that a lot of the money goes to, you know, the flowers. Because I already found out they pay the flower shop for that little bag of flower petals to throw over the yard. They're paying the flower shop more for that bag of flowers, petals.
They're putting more value into that damn petals.
I told my cousin,
petals, right?
I told my cousin's wife, I said, hey, you know, they pay. I know that I heard at that time, this is years ago, it was $80. I heard that the flower shop's making just for that little bag, just that. She said, what? You know, she goes, the costs for that, they just pick the flowers and they're making the thing in the flower shop, because she owns the flower shop. She owns her wedding service. They own the flower shop and everything about it.
Right.
She goes, the cost is not even $5. And she said, you're getting screwed, Primo. And, you know, she made that reality thing, but that's just the way it's been till now.
And is that rate something that's protected by the California Musicians Guild or something?
Not too long ago, I mentioned to somebody, I don't want to mention names because, you know, I don't want to burn any bridges. Because I'm just all about everybody, man, should just learn to embrace each other.
But there has to be,
lift each other up, right?
There has to be some point where the musicians come together and come to an agreement of, hey, look, they already cut down the drinking age to cut it to 21, and not only that, move the bars to close at 4 a.m. so no one's playing till 4 a.m. anymore. Right now there's less bands playing, and I'm sure that affected the music industry in some certain way with a lot of these musicians who made a life doing it, right?
Well, you know, and I'll just go ahead and say it right here too. You know, what really kind of affected things is, like, I guess nowadays some people just find that they can make more money if they just show up at a gig without anything else and just almost like a machine to back them up, and all the music's being played and you just sing with it kind of thing, right?
Right.
I heard that in Austin, Texas, where they protect musicians and artists, it's illegal for a bar to hire somebody if they're going to come in with like
background music.
Yeah, it has to be live artists. playing. No, but getting back to this, God, I lost my train of thought already because I wanted to talk more about this wedding thing. This official from Department of Labor, right? I mentioned because I knew the person too. You get to know a lot of people when you've been around as long as me, right?
For sure.
And I said, hey man, what's this thing? Isn't there a way where something could be done about this? I mentioned this whole thing, and you know what? This person looked at me and said, it's you guys' fault.
Wow.
And in a way, that stung, but she could be right too.
Could be true, yeah.
Because we allow it, and we don't pull together and try and do something, But it's all this politics that was going on too, because the people that were booking, the majority of these wedding services,
which was the
there
main,
was somebody,
which
there
was
was somebody
the main
booking
cake
and making money
of
out
being
of that.
a musician on Guam.
What's that? It was just crazy. It's just how, because there's no standards.
Has it reached a point of no return?
What's that?
Like with this, can there be a moment where
I'm always
musicians
very hopeful because
can get protections or can get right?
Because of the nature, the way there's such beautiful, highly evolved artists here
my
in Guam.
goodness.
Any kind of art form, send them anywhere in the world, they excel.
Right.
But we're just this little island here in Guam, I mean, think about it. I just always believe that there's this powerful source that sometimes we don't really know where it's coming from most of the time. But just think about it. I mean, we're the closest to the deepest part of the ocean, There's all this unknown things about what's in the very bottom of the ocean.
These hot vents.
Yeah.
Spewing out.
But I just like to think of that, and then I just like to think that sometimes the mind and the spirit could be, affected in a way with its surroundings or point of where you're at physically, even where we're at on the earth.
For sure. I just wonder why we constantly chase away talent to go pursue it somewhere else when we can totally nurture it today.
It could be part of our way of marketing ourselves, and this. It could be this island of beautiful artists, and make it unique and that beautiful and genuine. And my feelings and go beyond that, and my thinking and the depth of how I feel. I just personally really feel that the most beautiful part of Earth is in Oceania, and we're really part of that. Unfortunately, a lot of these big colonial powers, came and basically raped and pillaged Oceania, and there's still a lot of beauty and depth left in it. So it's your generation I'm starting to see hope, because I'm starting to see the likes of your generation and younger, reaching to draw from that energy and to realize that beauty is still there.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like when FestPac happened and, everything that we showed culturally kind of had this influence, but everyone else that presented something culturally seemed like it's been there for 1,000 years. And I feel like as a generation, we were starting to realize, like, whoa, this can slip away quickly. And whether it be language, whether it be music, whether it be just the culture of cooking or knowing who you are, your family, where you come from, or practicing the traditions that maybe your family's been doing. Maybe your family's the best rice cookers or make the best chicken kelaguen since 1936.
We have that here.
I'm sure.
There's families that have their specialties. Even growing up, I've embraced so much, and that's why I always feel that I'm not going to be short of inspiration or stories to tell. Even music that I write, whenever I play it, I always try and make it fresh and new, and there's always something positive to draw from. Even in the thought of food.
Right. Because I feel like culture is all encompassing, right? We maybe some pillars of culture get most of the focus, but there's still these little subtle things about culture that we can still identify with and allow to evolve. Right? Look how much music has come out in the last 5 years, right? All these musicians dropping albums like out of their pockets, like, oh, here's an album here, album here, album here, and
I know. I'm gone. I just thank God every day that I'm around to witness this, and and I take my mentoring seriously too. I mean, the keyboardist from the Phoenix Stage Band, I've been coaching them since they were in middle school at Mount Carmel. Now
Okay.
they're both going to graduate
right,
this year from high school.
right,
But it's just I watch them evolve and grow as artists, and that's just an example of
for sure, and it's gonna keep on evolving, and I guess it's a good place to like sort of segue into is like how much have you seen, or what was your experience of watching the music scene here on Guam evolve from when you were a little kid to today? I know it spans a few decades here, but
yeah. I'm just glad to see that people are so much into music, and despite the fact that I mean, reggae is not the kind of music I play, but I certainly have so much respect and joy. My godchildren love reggae. It's a feel good music.
yeah,
And sometimes reggae musicians will come up and say, "Hey man, I'm getting bored with what I'm doing." So how can you? It's an energy thing.
right,
You know.
yeah. Do you consider your music indigenous?
Um, in a way, yes, because of me feeling very much a part of who I am with being
here?
from here,
Right.
being Chamorro, being from Guam. That while I'm saying that, at the same time, I have to say that part of really feeling that in me is having very deep and genuine and going out of your way respect for other people too, for who they are.
Right. And their evolution, or just who they are as a person?
Who they are as a person, who they are, where they come from too. The only thing that will turn me off is if they don't reciprocate that back, as far as having that respect. But I rarely bump into that personally.
Yeah.
I hear and see so much of it too, though. It's kind of sad.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart when I hear of these things about people not getting along, and with all these things with the military buildup. Yes, and some people feel so. My mom, who's actually, now we feed her through a peg. I begged her to stick around to 100. She's gonna turn 93 this
Wow.
summer, but she's adapted to her condition. We take care of her 24/7, but she felt like we've been kind of like not treated so fairly, by the United States government and all that and stuff. And I think if
For sure, yeah.
and then there's all this thing, but at the same time, it's funny, but I cannot look at people that are here, even the military. I know that some of the people that I'm really close with, and I'm endeared to, they don't feel so fondly about when they see military people. But I always try and think that these people are here because that's their job.
Right.
They didn't
Can't
really
blame
choose.
them for a
But
bigger.
once I see them actually disrespecting me by not, and usually I can sense that vibe.
Yeah.
It's not hard to hide those kind of things.
For sure.
Then that could be a turn off. But at the same time, I always want people to know that I'm gonna embrace them as, and welcome them as, who, whatever the reason they are here for, because we're already here, kind of thing.
Right.
Because when I go anywhere else, I love to hang around with people from there, and I totally respect and honor where they're from,
Yeah.
and it always works. It always works. That human connection is something that we have to try and tap more into.
For sure. For sure. That's why I love doing this. This podcast. It allows for this.
Yeah.
For this.
Man, you gotta
human
you gotta
connection.
invite my party to come in. He's a fascinating Jesse Bias.
Definitely.
The guy meditates a lot, and he's always he's always in search of this thing, and I've always been aware of that, and I get a lot of vibe from him. I miss playing with him. You see, I used to play every Tuesday night with him and Ruby.
Okay.
Because they're at Outrigger.
Like, yeah, right.
They have that contract 7 nights a week. They take 2 nights off, but then they change their off night to Tuesday, so I still have that night. So I brought my group Trade Winds, the one with Shannon and her husband John.
Okay.
In there with me, but I love playing Jesse because then he and I, over the years, we wrote so many songs together. I talked about that song Tata, but there's that song that's in my Evolution CD called Language of Love. That came from that other record, I mentioned earlier.
Right.
And even that song Liberation. Or Liberation.
Yeah, there's a lot of history in you. As far as like musical history. And I feel like I've only I feel like I've only really scratched the surface.
Could be, boy, because you know why? I always try to make the most out of every minute of it. Like I told you, I ate, sleep, So it's always wanting to be in that moment and living it,
Right.
And being true to it, because then that's how you can keep extending yourself as an artist.
For sure. And this is perfect segue. I mean, earlier in the conversation, we were talking about your evolution as an artist, right? And so where do you see yourself evolving? Do you think you've reached a pinnacle, or is there's still road left to travel as far as your musical evolution?
I still feel like I have a lot to give. I mean, I'm really I'm being more diligent about taking care of myself physically, mentally, and spiritually.
For sure.
Because that all has to go hand in hand. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that my purpose right now is integrating everything into taking care of my elderly mom too, who's been supporting me as an artist.
Right.
So that's all part of this whole thing. And I try to go into the ocean every day if I could. I kind of feel terrible because I wanted to go for a swim before I came in for this. But sometimes your body just says, hey, you did already your major workout the day before. So just, And, one thing I noticed, and, I want to share this because it's not something that I want to just keep to myself. But to be honest with you, boy, my mind is clearer now than it's ever been as far as being able to connect the feeling of what I'm playing, the note, into what I'm playing. Most music I memorize, and it's funny because I play with my peers, and some of them got master's degree in music, and they're still looking at the same song we're playing all these years. They're still looking at their iPad chart. But
it's like jab.
I think a lot of it has to do with just that mental, having that kind of like focus.
You're in tune with yourself as a musician.
It's so important for me and going back to your question, that's why I still feel like I have so much to give, because I've tapped into something where, God willing, I can keep this thing still going. I'm 64 years old. I totally forget how old I am, except sometimes the knee's going to tell me. I overdid it. I was running too much. But, that's why I do these things, is to physically take care of myself, so I don't have to have too much of these.
Right. What do you do? What do you do to take care of yourself physically?
I try to go for
exercise.
A swim every day.
I
have these series of isometric exercises I've developed for myself, and also this whole ab and back workouts. That's the key part of it, and a lot of it has to do with the deep breathing and the stretching and
Does
to keep the flexibility.
Does sitting on a piano chair require?
Yeah, you have to have
that
good
core to just be oof.
Yeah, it's like playing drums. You gotta, or doing anything. You want to just go to your ultimate level. You have to be feeling just right about where your center is at and how all this thing is just because, it's just about that. So I work on all these things, man. I mean,
how about diet?
Yes, I have to. I'm more vegan than anything else, although I do eat fish. Not farm fish though, because the doctor already said it's not good. Some kind of nitrites thing that feeds into any kind of because of my
age. The foods are in the water.
I have to be more aware of, because of men my age have prostate issues and all that. I just don't want to have to deal with any of that.
For sure.
So, you know, I keep try and keep a very healthy and I've always been an avid hot pepper eater. You know those little baggies they sell in the store? I go through one of those a day at least.
Oh my goodness. Mine's been sitting in my freezer for at least 3 months.
Oh my God.
I pull them out one at a time and that's it. Just for Denny. That's it.
Man, I can race through at least a couple of dozen.
Oh my gosh. For me, the next day is never good whenever
I keep that regimen, and then, you know, in my workout in the water, I end my workout. Well, I end with this meditational practice of just laying in the water and just letting go of everything and just trying to draw a blank. But within that blank, I'm communicating with my guardian angels. And so but before that, right before that, I do my piano exercises in the water, and it's done me a world of good. Trust me, the weight of the water.
For sure. Resistance.
Wrist motions.
Yeah.
That's why I would never get tired playing.
How long you been doing this? These water exercises?
I think, you know, I've developed this I've been doing this for a good maybe 15, 20 years already. And, you know, I don't know, man, maybe I should make extra money and market these things. But I don't have
Palomo's finger exercises for duration and endurance.
I have been
in piano playing.
I've been asked by other piano players, what do I do, because they're always getting these pains and carpal tunnel things, and then a lot of it are just basic hand stretches too that you should do. It's like anything else. If you want to work at your ultimate thing in martial arts, you have to get your cardio just right. Everything has to be tip-top form.
Sure.
Well, that's what I like to do with my mind and my spirit, to be able to keep, you know. In fact, I just called my producer today because we already have a follow-up album to my Hinengi album. It's called Kulot Minahaling.
Wow.
Very Chamorro context, but that's already almost being done. The mastering is almost done already.
Man, done and recorded. I'm a busy man.
Well, you know, I've just been fortunate that I got to get a little bit, you know, a grant from the art. And, you know, that's one thing I'm always going to do, is I'm never going to not be true to, you know, this art thing, because part of it is because when you get awarded a grant to do it, there's already, that already has a huge thing to do with my purpose. Is very powerful because of that, because the last thing I want to do is get something where someone else could have benefited from it and not do the best I could with it. You know, that would be, you know, kind of like, you know, wasting it, or,
for sure.
You know, I always like to think in that context. So it's all about that with me, man.
Yeah. Mentally though, I mean, what is your I guess, besides in the water, do you do any out of water mental exercises in keeping your brain healthy, keeping it sharp, crossword puzzles?
I'm still trying to master
reading.
the art of catnapping.
The 20-minute nap.
For people who don't like to sleep, you need those.
Yeah. Me and Matt, we were just talking about that, huh?
There's a whole art to that.
Something about me and Matt's conversation before you came here, and
there's a way to do it.
Everything's tying in. I'm a big 20-minute, 30-minute napper.
Oh, yeah.
I like that stuff, and even though
don't make it longer, because sometimes if you go into your REM, you feel more tired.
Right. Matt said he falls into deep sleep within 5 minutes.
You get to your REM quick,
So everything's sort of tying in. So you keep yourself awake. You get these little spurts of naps, but you also throw in meditation or reading. Do you read a lot?
I love to read.
Okay.
You know, I love watching the news, and I love Golden State Warriors. My heart is broken right now. Boy, in order for me to do what I'm doing, the mind has to be. Yeah. Oh, who's your team?
No. I don't really have a team. I've always been into
basketball.
I've always followed players. So my favorite player has always been Shaquille O'Neal since I was a kid.
Shaq, man, good for you. I love him to death.
You know, and then he split and traded teams, and I never really found a team that I really liked to follow. and I'm just ready for the Golden State Warriors to just mess up this series and stop scratching James Harden's eyes and try to take out the leader.
I have a couple of friends that hates Green. Draymond Green. But honestly, I'm an average. This is the thing. In order to do, multitasking has a lot to do with me, being able to have that full effect.
Okay.
And so at the time when I was writing my PD Village album, after the gig, I wouldn't be able to sleep because once I already play music at a certain way where you put in your emotion and think, it's kind of like you can't sleep. That's why musicians always gravitate to doing it. Some of the greatest jazz musicians I know were heroin addicts. They had to find a way to come down.
To tap into that.
Yeah, but that was not. With me, I would. But when I come home, man, I'm not ready to sleep. I'll be sitting at my piano. I'll have my headphones on. I'll be listening to something. If it's something that we recorded that I'm trying to analyze, or it's just something I'm trying to learn or work on, and I'm at the piano, and then I'm watching TV because the sports used to come like at 2 or 3 in the morning when there's these games. And that time, the Lakers, man, were my team.
All right.
So I'd be multitasking like crazy. And that's why I think that I can accept the way things are now, because you got to be a multitasker. But I'm still not good. I still don't know how to send an email through my phone, I think it's just part of it is laziness too.
Just depends on the phone. If you have an Apple, it's pretty easy.
I haven't.
My friend Tony Villena would totally go against me on that suggestion, but
does he use a Samsung?
He's a Samsung. He's an Android guy, and
my brother too. He's telling me stop sending him those beating hearts because his phone always his Android always function. He has to reset it when I send him a beating heart. Why it doesn't beat in Android?
I don't think
I thought
so.
that's the greatest invention because it says so much.
For sure.
And my classmates, we have a class. I'm class of 73 FD, okay? The chat, I don't like twos. Once in a while, if it's something really profound, I'll send my beating heart. Somebody was teasing me about that. Because it just says it all,
For sure.
I just love everybody. And
yeah, Matt's a class of 15. I'm class of 5.
At FD?
FD, yeah.
Check this out, boy. After I got out of the seminary, I transferred to JFK, but because I was there for 2.5 years, I'm class of 73.
You qualify.
I'm qualified.
If I'm not mistaken, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong. Have you been to the recent meetings or anything of the like?
Yeah.
Isn't there some sort of vote that's gonna happen of the qualifications of what's considered an alumni? I think after 2006, you have to have a diploma. If it's before,
but is that going to affect me already?
No, I don't think so.
Boy, I was with half my classmates at FD. I was with some of them since Cathedral. And then when I transferred to St. Francis after Cathedral, I met some of my classmates along the way there too.
Yeah.
So these are people you grew up with all your life, despite what, but they're going to change it really? Well, now it's different.
Yeah. I mean,
but I don't think that's going to affect us all futs.
Definitely not your class. Definitely not your class. I think anyone before that, right? I'm not too sure. My facts may be wrong about this. What have you heard?
No, I heard the same.
Just that anything before 2006, it's 2 years or 1 year.
So you guys did graduate from from FD then?
Right. Yeah. 4 years. 4 years there.
You weren't in the seminary, were you?
No. Negative. I think it was already not a seminary school.
Part of the reason why I left the seminary has a lot to do with that priest, Father Louis Briller, that just passed away now.
Really?
He was my religion teacher.
Who was being accused of
he totally,
abuse.
Man, yeah, he did some really bad thing. I knew he was like that just from going to confession to him. That's what made me know already.
Really?
Yeah, all he wanted to do was hear about the sins of fornication. He wants you to describe it, getting off on it. And I knew, thank God that God
give me it in detail.
He made me know enough to to figure out a person that way, you know.
For sure.
And that had a lot to do with, in fact, I was approached to see if I wanted some kind of compensation because I wasn't physically abused, but I was emotionally. But you know, boy, my mom, her philosophy, because I checked with my mom, free, release, and forgive. That's what I did.
It's powerful stuff right there. It's powerful. It's not
Yeah,
not that easy to do something like
She
that.
just told that to me, and I'm trusting in her, and you know, this is my Chamorro mom telling me, and you know, to this day, I lay next to my mom every morning because she likes when I lay into bed.
Mm-hmm.
My time, boy, my mom is from 2 to 6 every morning, and everything I'm talking about and doing is all integrated into that energy.
For sure.
Because I told my mom, I go, you gotta hang out to be at least 100. I want to brag to people, and then part of it is I'll come and and part of my mom want to be because they still haven't figured out. She's waiting for her war reparations, boy, because she knows that she still has to help her still fledgling artist son. I just use that to laugh
Just
with her.
joke with her. You got to stick around just a little longer, right?
Anyway, I'm over talking already.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But we're done already, right?
Yeah, we can be done whenever we can continue this conversation on another.
Yes, let's continue
podcast.
another
Yeah,
time so
for
that
sure.
I can.
How long have we been going, anyways?
An hour and 30, just about.
Not
Boom.
really,
Yeah.
Right there.
but it wasn't even boring at all, right?
Nope, not at all.
Boy,
Not at all.
you're good. I love talking to you. I can't wait to tell your
Thank-
parents.
thank you
Hey,
so much,
should be
Uncle Pat.
Proud of your son.
Thank you. Before we start cutting out of here, do you want to play something? You brought this.
Oh no! Maybe
you want to
next time.
play some? Just give us a minute of it. Something. If you got a minute, if you want to just give.
Nice and low.
Yeah. Let us listen to that. How are you? If you got a
This is
minute.
just- I teach
And
with
then-
this, but sometimes I pick it up and do a solo with it with the band or what. But
Yeah, it'll be a treat. It'll be a treat. Something never done on the podcast. And also, when you're done, promote everything that you have out and upcoming, and so that people can download it or buy it and do whatever.
you know, I'm just right in the moment, but instead of trying to do something and then I probably might screw it up or make a mistake, I'm just gonna play a melody of one of my tunes that's kind of recognizable. It's in my Evolution CD.
Okay.
You know that
Yep.
it's called the Joy Suite. Boo, did I ever tell you that song was a one taker and it's the longest song on the album? It was over 15 minutes. Wow. And everybody
One take?
played there. And I love all the musicians that I play with on that record. I consider all the musicians I've ever played with, they're all musical soulmates.
Yeah, I think about that too, and it's you're able to integrate Chamorro language with jazz music, when Chamorro music has a really strong backing of country music.
Yeah,
right?
well, because a lot of Chamorro artists that's their feeling. They were affected by country music, but music is really very universal.
For sure,
so
for sure.
that's being able to. But then that song I got to talk about. It's called the Joy Suite. It's funny that, and I have to give kudos to one of my favorite musicians here on island, Mike Hartendorp.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's quite a live in the moment kind of a person. He did
I just met him a few weeks ago, maybe like a month ago, and as super humble guy. I was like, give him all the praises, and
boy,
he was like,
the
no,
guy knows the whole Steely Dan and Beatles song, but I can't even do what he does. But Mike, he did. I asked him to do a electric piano intro to that song. And that's what
amazing.
you're hearing. People think that I was the one. No, I played piano, and this was a song I wrote since the late '80s. I was at a gig with my brother and Mike Damore's brother Sal, and Sal just said, "Hey Pat," Sal likes to do this to me. He's one of those musicians. Let's just jam. So he'll set a beat on the drum, right? And all of a sudden he set this kind of a nice ballad funk, rhythm, and then this melody I'm going to play for you came out. It's called Joy. And the reason why I refer to it is because one of the more simpler songs I wrote. And then musicians always like to play it. So
sweet.
I'm just going to play the melody. Okay.
Amazing.
That was it.
Amazing.
Just a loop on that. The whole song is a loop on that.
Yeah.
I screwed up the first part of the melody, but I didn't.
It's okay. We didn't even notice. We didn't even notice.
Parameters of the harmonic structure, so I didn't panic. See, that's one of the other things that comes with my maturity. I take a lot of risks, and people go, "How can you do that?" Actually, people think I can play anything. It's because I'm too embarrassed to say no most of the time, and then I just trust, and then I take risks.
Amazing. Thank you, Uncle Pat.
It was a pleasure, boy. And
put anything out. This is your chance to plug anything you like.
Yeah, because your audience are very savvy to how to get stuff online.
For sure.
All my stuff is available. Like my latest stuff is called Hinengi. It's on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon. All these outlets. CD Baby, I think. I laugh at myself because I'm sounding as if I know these technical things. It's just because. But you can also Google a lot of all my other stuff online and probably find it somehow.
Okay. Follow you social media at all? No? Okay.
I'm supposed to have a page out there that my singers, you get in this island thing.
I saw there was a Patrick Palomo fan page.
Yes.
Yes.
Santino Scambolori, who's one of my... In fact, I just talked to the guy. That guy's one of the geniuses, the true geniuses I know in my life. Okay, he's a lieutenant commander in the military in the U.S. Navy. He's also a great golfer, and he's also a great singer. Remember Renaissance?
Yes.
He just did this stint with an 11-piece band singing What Is Hip. And because he killed it, he nailed it, he called me up to tell me about it just yesterday. I think I mentioned to him I was going to do this podcast. But what were we talking about again? It's funny I couldn't remember bringing up his name. He's the one who started my fan page.
Right. Fan page.
And he left the responsibilities to the singers that ensued after him, which is supposed to be Shannon and Andrew Gubatauta right now. But, those guys are very busy and they have their own thing they're doing.
For sure.
But
we're gonna have to get a social media manager for you then.
Well, what you can do is, I know Shannon's very avid with her group Microchild, and I'm very connected with her and her husband John Glaser. Go to their thing and just mention, hey, Patrick Palomo mentioned you guys. How can we get to his thing? I don't know.
You said you were managing his social media.
Well, Santino was supposed to go. Boy, I wish I knew to do those things. But see, that's just how it is with me. I really don't.
Even just a simple website for people to, I think of it as like a one-stop shop to get anything that has of your artistry.
I think it's there somewhere.
Shoot, Uncle Pat, you just might be doing YouTube videos one day, and...
One more thing I got to mention is there's a guy I'm trying to become my publicist because he's one of the backers behind my music, is Daryl Manibusan. He's in LA right now.
Okay. He's
the one who did a lot of the legwork for getting the grant that I got from Kaha to do, to be able to support this project, Hinengi, that I did.
Right.
And I wish you were around because then he's the guy that can do all these things, and follow up. But yeah, boy, thanks anyway for allowing me to plug. You'll find my stuff out there.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for gracing us on the podcast. Honestly, all I was thinking is like, whoa, this is
for asking me to be part of your thing.
This is the first legend I've ever had on the podcast.
Oh, give me a big legend. I'm just
that's all genuinely.
I look at you as much as I love I love you as if you were my own godson because I love my godchildren. I just respect you and look at you as an equal to in a certain way.
Thank you, sir.
As far as a human being and nowadays. Your intellect, people's intellect is so good that I have to kind of, you kind of look, the way I look at it is I'm trying to teach my godchildren how to raise their kids. Nowadays, I know this because I've been paying attention. I've been around that culture where you can't say anything. Nowadays, the kids are too knowledgeable. You have to be their best friend.
For sure.
I think that as a parent, you be best friends of your kids, and
they'll learn more outside of you than
your family will be so connected and so grounded and so whole.
Wise words. That's wise words. Maddie, got anything? You want to talk about that catnap? No?
Hey, thanks you guys. This is such an awesome, beautiful thing you're doing, and honestly, thanks for. Even you want to call me a legend, I just feel like I'm honored to be asked to do something with you guys, because as long as your generation is kind of paying attention, then it makes it all good.
The pleasure is all mine, Uncle Pat. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of the podcast. You can stand up. Okay. You can do whatever you want. Yeah, I'm just going to close this out. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast with the legend, Patrick Palomo. Well, I got to call him Uncle Pat, but you can call him Patrick Palomo. Listen to all his stuff. Follow him. You can't follow him, but download all his music. All his music's on Spotify right now. So if you got the account and you got access to it, why not? If you want to go buy it, go and buy it. Right? All CD Baby, iTunes, you can find it all on the digital outlets.
Streaming right now.
No.
I'm laughing at myself. Did I actually ask a question about live streaming? It shows how much I watch media.
Yeah, for sure.
I have to educate myself, so I watch the news all the time.
Here, bring this up. Yeah.
Oh, we're still on? I'm always watching the news.
We're going to close out soon.
I love to watch sports, except because the Golden State Warriors lost, I'm not going to watch for the next 2 days. That's a waste of time for me.
They're going down. Thank you so much, everybody. Once again, Maddie loves you. I love you. And until next time, peace out. Hey, guys, thanks so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. The legend, right? The walking legend, Patrick Palomo. Nothing more to say. Incredible conversation. I want to give a shout out to the sponsor, to Ada's Mortuary. Big enough to serve, small enough to care. Go visit them over in South Route 4, Sinanya, Guam, or call them at 477-1311. Don't forget to support us on Patreon. If you're a Patreon user, it's a good way to become part of the podcast. We're approaching 200, so I got some stuff lined up, and I want you to benefit off of it since you are directly supporting the podcast. So many thanks. Also, don't forget to rate and review the podcast. No matter what you're listening to that's all I should leave it on. Even though I'm really tracking the Apple stuff, why not? If you're listening to this on any other platform and they allow you to, go for it by all means. And thanks once again for being super awesome.